Hey fly tyers, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, then welcome. My name is Matt and this channel is all about learning to tie flies. Now the pattern I'm going to be walking through today is Gary LaFontaine's Deep Sparkle Pupa. He's also got an emerging sparkle pupa meant to fish in the surface film. This one is weighted on a nymph hook. It's meant to fish right along the bottom. So it's not too difficult to tie. I think you're going to enjoy it. Let's get started. So in the vise is Gary LaFontaine's Deep Sparkle Pupa. This is a size 12. You can tie it from as big as a 10 to probably as small as an 18. So as always, I will explain the materials as I go and put the recipe in the description. So I've got a size 12 barbless 2x long nymph hook. I'm going to lay down a base of 0.15 weight, probably 10 or 12 wraps, a bit fewer if you are using 0.20, but you do want this thing to get deep. It doesn't have a whole lot of materials that would keep it buoyant, but there are some. For the thread, I am using a brown olive 70 denier UTC. I will put a dam just behind the weight, carry it up over the top with a few securing wraps, build another dam in front, then take it back to the start of the bend. Now the next component is your Z-lon or Antron or Z-lon sparkle yarn. When you pull a strand out, it's a pretty thick strand and then it breaks down into 3 smaller strands. So this is one of the 3. Now I'm going to catch this one in on the top. It's kind of a small little pinch wrap there. A couple of turns. Now see all that fluff up front? We can either trim that or try to bind it down. Either is probably fine. It's going to have a pretty thick body, thickly dubbed body. So if you have a lot of fluff up here, you'll be able to cover it with your body. If you want to go ahead and trim it, that's fine too. Now this is where a rotary vise really comes in handy, because we're going to do the same thing for a piece on the bottom here. Now this one is a little trickier. You're going to obviously have to lay it off to one side to get it started with the point of the hook right there. So if you can do a little pinch wrap right there, maybe pull some of that forward, and we'll end up trimming a little bit of that as well. But so just a few wraps here. This will take a little bit of time. Watch the point of your hook. Get it as back as far as you did the other one, the top one. Okay, I think we're fine right there. Now let's see if we can trim off some of this fuzz. Okay, we got most of it there. Let's go ahead and bury this in right here. Bring our hook back, level it out. Try to get this a little bit out of the way, but we've got 2 distinct strands of the Z-lon or Antron, whatever you're using, coming off. Now, this is the cool part of this fly. You can really create it in any colors you want. Natural colors, probably browns and ambers and olives. I'm doing this one in olive. So I've got some olive fur, it's rabbit, mixed in with a little bit of ice dub. You could also mix in some sparkle yarn, just cut some small pieces. So put some wax on your thread and dub a noodle maybe 3 inches or so, just enough to cover that weighted wrap and get you back up to the front. Now if you have to put dubbing on here in 2 times, that's going to be fine. So start it right back there where you caught in that Antron. You kind of want a football shape, not necessarily a significant taper, but I'm going to have to go a little bit more right there. So put a little wax on, grab a little bit more of this dubbing. Okay, now when you've got your body built in, take your top strand of Antron, 2 loose wraps right here. I'll show you why in a second. We don't want to bind that down too tight. Do the same thing with your bottom one. Another 2 loose wraps. Still got these fairly well separated. Now take your dubbing needle, or bodkin, and put it up under there and pull a little bit out. Just give a little bit of slack, because we're going to be wrapping that around in just a second. So you'll want to do that to both strands. Okay, just make it loose enough that you'll be able to wrap it around. So take a couple more tight wraps right there. Now before we snip off these ends, we do want to pull this around. So you can use your bodkin or your thumbnails. I've been doing it both ways. See, we just pulled some of that around on the front, or the top. And we'll do the same thing on the bottom here. It looks like don't worry if you think, well, I'm covering up all my body, you'll never see that green in there, because you will. This Z-lon is meant to imitate the air bubble of the emerging caddis, the air bubbles that it captures, and you will definitely see the translucence when it's wet and underwater. So after you've got it wrapped around about like whatever you think looks good, go ahead and pull these up and trim them off. Get them as close as you can. Make the head a little easier to clean up in the end. Now the next component is partridge or maybe grouse. Just a few small tips of the feathers. I pulled these off of a feather about like this. I'm going to lay about 6 or so on each side. Maybe half the body length. See that length right there? That might be a little more than half, but I think that looks okay. And do the same thing on the near side. Now to adjust that one just a little. Okay, now before you secure them, check your links. I think those look fine. So I'm going to put a couple more tighter wraps to really catch this in. Legs still look okay. Now we can trim off these butt ends. Next step, just try to flatten this head out. We're going to be wrapping some Marabou, and if this is flatter, it's going to make it just a bit easier. So get a small tuft from the base of your strung Marabou pack, and you'll want to take probably about 4 or 5 of the fibers here. About that many right there. Go ahead and clip it off the stem. And before we tie it in, you'll probably want to snip the tips off just to make it an easier tie-in. So I'll lick my finger and put that together right there. Now just a loose wrap right there. And that should be fine. Tighten my thread. Now we're going to just, you might want to spin this a little bit, but we're only going to make about 2 wraps. So I'm going to grab my hackle pliers here. Just make it a little bit easier to spin this around the hook. Okay. Now this is not bulky at all. So there's one wrap, and then there's my second full one. So go ahead and zigzag that through to catch that in. Okay, now we can snip off this excess here. Oh, it might have started slipping on me. See if I can secure that. Yeah, I got it back, so that will be fine. We'll have a little bit of cleanup right here to do. You can do that right now or when you're wrapping the head before you put the head cement on. So make sure I didn't mess my legs up. They're coming off just like I would like. And I've got this small bit of brown marabou for the head there. I'm going to try and clean this up, build the ramp back up before I whip finish. And got a little bit of an annoying piece right there. It's not going to get in the way of the fly of how it fishes, but we just like to make it as clean as possible. So I think I can whip finish this one. I've got enough room on that head for a drop of head cement. And Gary LaFontaine's Deep Sparkle Pupa is done. So there you go, folks. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you learned something, and I hope you will consider subscribing. So that's all. We'll see you next time.